Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another expert segment in the Saucy Marriage Weekend. How's it going thus far? Make a post, put a comment below this. Let us know. We're here for you. And I have a gentleman who's here for you as well too. And I'm so excited that he's here. It's always fun. It's always a good rapport. We've been kicking it since we both started our life coaching journey and then branched off into our particular, niches and just our passions with that. And he's been keeping it real ever since and, making me laugh and helping people through their brokenness and into healing, which we all need, in our lives, especially now, but always,
Yes.
right? So I'm super excited to have you, Willie Johnson, the Willie Johnson.
Hey, what's going on, sis? How you doing? I had to be my own intro with the yelling and the screaming.
Yes,
What's going on with you? How you doing?
I'm doing great right
I
now
just want to tell
because,
you, I'm proud of you.
oh,
I am
thank you.
proud of you. I know I just threw that in there. You're like, that was not what we supposed to be talking about. But I'm proud of you. Like from doing our training to now to see how you just really fell into what you're doing. I just want you to know that I'm proud of you for everything that you're doing. And thank you for allowing me to be a part of it.
Absolutely. No,
You
this wasn't a part of it. He done gone off script in the first 2 seconds, y'all. They ain't really no script, but I'm just saying. But thank you. Thank you. It's definitely been a journey and it continues to be. And I'm excited. This is the first annual Saucy Marriage Weekend. We're making it rock because this is the spot that we need to be to feed our marriages. We need places and spaces to be able to do that. And I know that your nuggets are going to be able to help us do that, sir.
Yes.
Yes. What do you want
I'm
to,
praying
add to the people? Add for the people. The
for the people, for
for
the
the people.
people. I'm just going to add that, at this time right now, we're really seeing that our relationships have to really be rooted in communication and understanding. When I tell you that is the biggest, I think that's one of the biggest things, not one of the biggest, but probably the biggest thing that causes relationships, not only just marriages, but family relationships, friend relationships, all of those things to fall apart because people are not communicating
Yeah.
truly
Yeah.
with each other. Now I can communicate, but I might don't tell you everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you already know that that's my, bread, butter, jam, biscuits,
Damn. Yes. The whole thing.
honey,
Yes.
agave, all of it. Because, we say that communication is key and we constantly get hit with why that's the case, but it's challenging for us to break down what that really means in your relationship. Now, you said, you could communicate in your relationship, but you're not telling all of it.
Mhm.
What were you getting at, sir?
Well, I'll say this. Sometimes when I say that in that aspect, sometimes we can tell something that we want to like hint towards. We'll hint towards like, I don't like it, but I'm not going to say that I don't like it. I want you to figure it out, you
Mhm.
know, because we are together. You're supposed to read my mind. That's what people may think. And I'm like, no, no one is a mind reader.
Yeah.
So instead of, saying half of the truth or
Mm.
half of the problem, tell the whole problem so you can get the full solution.
Right. Right. Absolutely. I'm here for that. It's easier said than done. It always sounds really simple. And I think when we think about where we are in the world right now, you know, the opportunity that we have to lean into really sharing, really being vulnerable, really being able to communicate, the opportunity is there. But there are elements that seem to keep us from that because it's been a year now
Yep.
and we've adjusted, but there was definitely a huge adjustment period, and some people are still adjusting in their homes, in their marriages, and with their kids around how to connect with their spouse. And spending this much time with yourself and having to get honest with yourself about you first, and then having that branch off into somebody else.
I think that's the biggest thing is that we get so comfortable with routine that we forget to understand that life is meant to be lived freely, not in a box.
Yeah.
So you get caught in that routine, and then you realize, and that's something that I want to talk about. Routine is good to keep your life organized, but it is bad to keep love alive.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is love. Go.
No, yeah, go. Cause I was marinating on it anyway. So just go.
And the reason I say that is because you have to look at it like this. Love is something that no one has control over. You don't know when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen. The one thing that you do know, in order to fall in love with someone, you have to spend time with them. It is no way you can fall in love with anyone without spending time with them, right? So you have to understand that to get to that point, to being in love, you had to be cognizant of the things that you did with that person in order to fall in love. And then when you get in a relationship, most of the time what happens is people will get comfortable. Okay, I got them. I don't know. I no longer have to do what I did to get them. And that's actually true sometimes. You don't
Mhm.
want to continue to do the same things that you did to get them because everyone grows, everyone changes. So if you met them in the club drinking and you all had fun when you first started, 10 years from now, hopefully you're not going to the club drinking, you know. So you have to be willing to change with time. You
Yeah.
have to be willing to change with the level of love that you are having with that person as well too.
Yeah, that's hopefully growing as well, right? And you mentioned that and we've talked about this, you and I, that we all grow and we all evolve individually. And I want to ask kind of this personal question, and I'll
But
answer it for myself too, especially in the era of the pandemic.
mhm,
Was there a time in your life where you were uncomfortable being by yourself? Your
yes,
own thought, yeah?
yes.
What that
Um,
look like?
it was it was a couple years ago, but what it was
Right.
is that I didn't know how to love myself. So I didn't want to be alone with me because I didn't want to deal with the fact that I wasn't whole. I wasn't happy with me. So I felt because we are the type of people that serve others and
Mhm.
that give us a point of or a feeling of happiness. That's what I focused on. I
Mhm.
focused on adding everybody else's happiness into my life so that I would feel happy,
Yeah.
not realizing that once they're unhappy, now I'm unhappy.
Mhm.
So I'll say probably about 5 years ago when I made a big change. Right before the big change was I cut my hair. I didn't have any hair on my face. I think they swapped
I was
maybe.
like, I
So
can't picture that, but okay.
yeah, I didn't have any hair on my face. Had the waves and all. And at that time when I was changing that, I said I need to find me because I lost myself in the process of making everybody or not making, but trying to make everybody else happy, not
Right.
knowing that you can.
Yeah.
So I took that time to start learning what is it that I like. And at that time, I didn't even know what my favorite color was because I was so
Mm.
used to people saying, "Oh, that color looks good on you." Okay, if it looks good on me,
Mm.
then I'm gonna take what you said and say that's my favorite color. Something as simple as that. You don't realize how much control you give someone. And
Yeah.
that about 5 years ago is when I realized that my controlling my happiness, I put it in other people's hands. So
Yeah.
that's why I was never completely happy because
Yeah.
I wasn't doing happiness for myself.
Can I ask you something? I promise
Go ahead.
I'm gonna spill
Go
my
ahead.
tea too.
Go ahead. I'll
But
spit.
because I know that there are people, being in a relationship, you're still two people that have to navigate what that looks like for you. And I'm sure that times that were challenging for me and times that were challenging for you, other people can relate to. So when you say that you weren't happy with yourself, what was the barometer for that? What were the aspects of your life that you were like, okay, I'm not hitting it, I'm not rising to my expectation?
Well, as a man, I'll say the first thing was financially, I wasn't in a place that I felt like I should be. You know,
Yeah.
and society says for you to be a man, you have to have this, 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 and this, right?
Yeah.
For you to be a good man or a good
Mm.
catch, right? Not realizing that everybody is not meant to be this way or live this way or have this thing, right? Um, but I always had a mindset that, I'm going to have all of these things, right? Because I only wanted them because society says this is what you want in your life. This is what makes you be a man. This is what makes you be valuable to anyone else. So I devalued myself because I didn't have those things.
Mhm.
So that was the main thing is that finances, I didn't have that. the way that I wanted. And although I was able to do things, I wasn't able to do the things that I saw online,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I had a
The
good
gram.
life. The gram. I don't know why the gram is like that. Facebook was never like that. Facebook was
It
never like that.
because Instagram's so visual.
Yes,
So
it is. Yeah, Facebook, you can do words and all of that. So yeah, I get you. So that's what it was. It was the gram that really put me in a place to where I
mm,
felt like I wasn't valuable enough for a woman, right?
mm,
So then that started bothering me mentally. I'm not able to do the things that I see other people are doing for their kids, or I felt like I didn't know how to love myself, so I didn't know how to love my kids. That's another thing we can talk
mm,
about as a man, not on this one, but another segment. Men don't tell the truth about that. And I had to tell the truth to myself because I was so focused on trying to do, once again, what society says. I was not focusing on the things that really meant the most. And I didn't know how to as a man. I didn't really know how to show love. It was always keep in everything that you have, emotional wise, and deal with everything else, right? So that's where it put me in a place of those things. Is financially, I didn't have what I wanted. I didn't drive the car that everybody said that you should drive, and have the clothes and spend all of the money. So it really was based on finances.
yeah. And I think that that's real. I feel like, you know, we can relate on that, and even when you're in the relationship, you can see that that's a trigger, like the finances aren't right. That's a trigger, and the shift that happens in the relationship or with the attitude and things like that, because it's a very personal thing. It's feeling like I'm not able to add value, like you said, or security to the relationship. And I would say, just to bring it into the current times, a lot of things shifted with people's money around in the last year. And so those feelings could be escalated. There are a lot of things that are out of our control. And for me, a lot of my situation happened, when I was younger, several years ago, when I was kind of going through my ugly duckling, what I call my ugly duckling phase. Like, it wasn't that I wasn't cute or whatever, but I was constantly comparing myself to friends that dressed a
Yeah.
certain way or had a certain rapport, and I was the cool friend, and I wanted to be chosen. Like, I wanted to be chosen for being the attractive one, and I didn't talk a lot about that. And so for me, being alone without a partner, like, I always had, friends and stuff like that, but being alone without a partner that really saw me was challenging. And I started to kind of chip away, thinking there was something wrong with me. And this is right before I met my husband. But I had to do the work of, like, okay, sit with yourself. What are you bringing to the table? What is your worth? Because you don't need someone to choose you. You have to choose yourself. And so I feel like there's a similarity in that. And I had to choose myself. And when I did, I recognized some things about myself that could make it challenging when you're sitting with your own thoughts about how my triggers manifested, because my tongue was just lash queen. I could tear somebody down with my
Not
words.
you.
Yes, me. Yes. And it wasn't a huge aspect of my personality. People that knew me wouldn't say that, but if you knew that you were the one that crossed my line, then you knew, but there weren't many people that crossed that line with me because I'm not that type of person. But I also had to realize and sit with myself that I didn't show up like that with anybody, including in a relationship. So I had to make that shift, and that was one that I continued to make into my marriage.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
No,
Go
I
ahead.
think it's important.
Yeah.
Uh, and the reason why is because I think if as teenagers, if we had people that really set us down and told us the importance of loving yourself, and not for what you have, but for who you are and who
Mm,
you are meant to be, I think a lot of the trauma, especially in our community,
yeah.
a lot of the trauma, a lot of the staying in toxic relationships or friendships would not be an aspect as strong as it is now.
Right.
Because you know that that is not something that you're supposed to be in, but because you're used to dealing with hell, you willing to stay in hell just in case you don't want to leave and go somewhere else. And maybe you feel you may go to a place that feels like heaven or maybe another hell,
Mm.
but you rather deal with the hell that you know than
Mm.
to put yourself in a place to where you may can find heaven in
Yeah.
that aspect. You know,
Ain't that something? That we'll just
yes,
we get comfortable with a certain level of misery, a certain level of
yes,
discomfort with ourselves and in our marriages. You gotta be real with yourself. Where if it's not a whole, for those of you who are listening, is there an aspect of your relationship where you know it's not right, but you just gotten so comfortable and used to it that you don't even see the possibility of it being able to be changed?
hmm
Mm.
and I think the biggest, and that's something that I wanted to hit on, is falling into routines in a relationship can be a great thing and a bad thing at the same time. And the reason I say that is to keep your life organized, to make sure that you're doing your job and things like that. Routines are good. But when it comes to love, you cannot put love in a box. And as I was stating, because we don't control love in any aspect at all, right? So if you're routinely doing certain things when it comes to, okay, we're gonna go out to this restaurant every week, once a week or every 2 weeks, we're gonna go to a restaurant, and then the next week we're gonna go to a movie, then the next week we're gonna go to a park. At what point are you gonna realize that, hey, last year that was okay, but this year that's not okay? I want something different. Can you rub my feet this week because my feet hurt? You
Mhm.
know, can we go to the gun range or something? I think people have lost that. You like that, huh? The gun range. The gun range is good. It's definitely the people that fall. They sleeping on the gun range. The gun range can let you when you pull that trigger. I'm telling you, 10 years ago, something that bothered you left with that bullet out that chamber. We ain't gonna talk about that though. That's
It's all
y'all check
good.
it out yourself.
Yeah.
Check it out yourself. The gun range. But I think what people, I promise you, I did some research. Working out together is one of the best ways I feel to build bridges back to love.
Mm.
The reason I say that is because the things that it releases, releases endorphins and dopamine, right? When you work out, that's the same. Release those same chemicals when you're having sex.
Mhm.
So if those things are making you feel a certain way when you're having sex, why not do it in other areas in your life to make you feel that love and that type of feeling as well, right?
Yeah.
So if you're feeling good emotionally and mentally, and you're starting to look good as well together, that brings you back to love in a different way than what you were used to doing.
Yeah.
So I think that's the having a routine is good when it comes to keeping your life together, but having a routine for love, it doesn't work.
Yeah. And see, I tried working out with my husband. Just not, I feel like I have delusions of grandeur. I'm like, "Ooh, we gonna work out," and then either it doesn't happen or he can't focus, okay, on the task at hand, you know.
Hey,
But
it's woman. You better be glad he can't
I'm like,
focus
"This
on
is
the workout but you.
supposed to be working out,"
Yeah.
but it's I think I I'm like I hear people saying like, "I don't want to work out," or they work out differently, or their workout is their me time, right? And so, how do they navigate that?
Yeah. I I get you with me time, right?
Mhm.
Um, but me time cannot always be just me if you're in a relationship,
Yeah.
right? Because and I'll say this in relationships, marriage, it's still going to be certain things that you have to do in both, no matter what, right? So when you're dealing with each other, if you're in a relationship, yeah, it's okay to take me time, but then it has to be we time as well too, because you could be strong by yourself. I could be strong by myself. But if we're on two different pages and where you are is different and thinking, and then the same way with me, now we're going to keep butting heads. So, yes, it's okay for me time. By all means, take it. But you have to set aside we time as well too.
Yeah.
What can we do to continue to build a bridge back to each other? Because
Right.
in this time, a lot of people have realized their relationships was not as strong
Mhm.
as they thought it was,
Mhm.
because you have 8 hours at work, 8 to 10 hours at work, then especially in traffic these days, you have an hour in traffic, then you come home, you're going to eat, hey babe, how your day was, take a shower, uh, you know, maybe look at social media for a little bit of read, and then you go to sleep,
Mhm.
right? And then you do that for 5 days, and then you home for 2 days, but now you're cleaning up, then you're still cooking. If you got kids, you got to make sure the kids good, and
Yep.
but it's really rarely time where it's what are we doing?
Right.
How are we going to be
Right.
happy? And I think you have to understand the importance of that. So you have to set that time aside. If you
Right.
want to continue to stay happy, you have to do things to prevent yourself from becoming unhappy.
Right. And I'm hearing mix it up. I'm hearing be intentional with the time that you have because I've been there of ships that pass in the night and and like you tired, you get home and the only thing you can muster up to talk about was how was your day. But a lot of times if we're honest, and I hear this too when I'm talking to couples or even couples that I've worked with, like they don't want to talk about it depending on their job, they don't want to talk about the day. Like they don't want to come home and then talk about the last 8 hours of work that drain them in the first place.
Right.
But it's our, like you're saying, it's that's what you ask. How was your day? You ask your kids, how was school today? Kids are like, fine, and then it's the adult version, like, how was your day? It was cool, same old, same old. And then you're in this space of like, well, can you give me some more? Like, I want more than that. And they don't have more to give. And like you said, it's that routine and the lack of feeling like we have time. But I'm
Yeah.
hearing that we've got to make sure that we make that intentional time because what are you saying? Like, it's
Mm.
like you're saying, well, I ain't got time for my marriage and my relationship. It's
Yeah.
like, well,
Yeah.
no bueno.
Yeah. And I say it like this because I was my job I was working at. I was saying I didn't have time as well too, right? But my job started telling me that we had to stay longer.
Mm,
So it would be, an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours longer, right?
mm,
So I'm like, how is it that I can put so much value on my job that I can find 2 or 3 more hours out of my day to work and still go home and do the things that I was going to do? That means that it wasn't that I didn't have the time. I just didn't value the time that I had and
mm,
made time for the things that I needed to make time for.
yeah,
That's the problem. Is
yeah,
that we don't the value of what we have.
yeah.
I I can say I made a lot of mistakes when it came to dating for myself because I felt at the time I didn't know about the love languages, right? How
Mhm,
to love someone the way that they want to be loved. So I'm thinking,
mhm.
I'm doing all of this for you, and I'm helping you, and I'm showing you this, and you still complaining. I can't do nothing right.
Yep.
Till that love language book came and I read, it, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I might like to tell her that she's beautiful, but she might like gift giving, you know?
Mhm.
So, and then it would come back and I would do like an extra service or something. And I would go through and I'm like, oh man. So now I see the importance of that. So now when I'm dating, I have to make sure that I am paying attention to them.
Yeah.
So you have to make that time to pay attention.
Can I just want to because what you
Go
said,
ahead.
the
Go ahead.
last like two things you said circles back to what you were saying in the beginning about your personal story because the time and the priority thing and the fact that a lot of us will test when supervisor whomever calls, you'll do that over time. You won't say the no because that's where the money resides. And like you said, we grow up and say our value and what as a for you as a man, as a husband, as a boyfriend, as whomever fiance,
Yeah.
as a father, you know what I mean, as a parent, it resides a lot in the security of being able to financially provide. And so that becomes a very, very high priority. And we spend, like you're saying, the time on things that are priorities. So there's a link between what your relationship is with money and your own worth, and then saying, well, I'm going to find the time to find 2 3 extra hours for work, you know what I mean? And that's really really key in terms of maybe understanding ourselves, right? That why that takes such precedence, because if we're not doing that, then it feels like the providing will start to wane,
Yeah.
and that's on your shoulders, you know what I'm saying? So how do you reconcile, like, this is still important, it is the lights and the mortgage and rent and what all the things and the groceries, but there's still this aspect of, I also need to make sure that I'm leaning into this priority, that what you said, what matters.
Mhm. And and it's all of that goes to at the beginning when you first start dating. If you communicate uh, the or get past the communication barriers.
Mhm.
Say, for instance, I don't want to say this because I don't know if it's going to hurt their feelings, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, but
Common.
not, but it's hurting your feelings that you're not saying. So because it's something that bothers you. So at what point are you going to start your relationship that way? So when you start the relationship that way, it's going to continue that way. And then when you start feeling like I can't take this anymore and you start saying things, that's when it feels like you're complaining or you're upset or you're angry about something because it's like, well, you never told me this. You
Hmm.
never said anything like this before, right?
Hmm.
So it comes to communication, like you said, your bread and butter when you talk about it boils down to you have to understand how significant it is to have open communication. And this is something that you have to establish at the beginning of any type of a relationship. And
Yeah.
I feel like everybody should have a safe haven when you sit down once a week or once a month, where it's like, hey, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to listen to you. I want you to tell me the things that you don't like, right? But I can't give a rebuttal. I can only ask questions to get better understanding.
Right.
So that now it's like, okay, I'm asking questions to understand what you're saying, but I can't answer you back. I can't say, well, yeah, but this is no, it's every question that I do, it's a question, not a statement. It's always going to be a question. So when you leave there, now it's like, okay, they told me how they feel, and you put that safe haven. It's like you can't get mad. There's no getting mad and no frustration. It's literally you have to listen, ask questions, and then we can sit down to ourselves and think about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll say for men, you're listening to me. We need to do more in the aspect of communicating how we truly feel and understanding how to communicate that without anger, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the reason a lot of us have that anger is because we allow stuff to build up and build up. I don't want to bring it up because I don't want to start an argument. I don't want to start anything. And we allow those things to build up. And then when we talk about it, eventually, we're talking about feelings that we've had months ago. We have to stop doing that. We
Hmm.
have to be willing to communicate, have that safe haven so that you all can continue to build and grow together.
Yeah. And I don't know the word, because I know this is your thing, and it's in the title of your book, when you talk about your brokenness, those are the areas, and we get uncomfortable with that, but those, we all
Yeah.
have areas that are cracked, you know what I mean? Then we go through this life experience working on our healing, which is what it is that you do, but that is playing in my mind because a lot of that stuff, you're not being honest with yourself first, and that's part of the brokenness and feeling like you maybe don't have that safe space. And I remember talking to a friend of mine, and she was saying there was a point where I only thought there were two emotions that my husband had: either he was cool, he was chill, or he was mad. Like that was it. And I grew up really not thinking that I can hurt a man's feelings, which obviously, if I'm triggered, and I told y'all real talk about my mouth, at a time in my life that I've had to work on. Um it's it, it and, and it wasn't even necessarily that I was trying to. Sometimes I was just blunt. I wasn't really thinking about it. I was like, oh, I couldn't hurt his feelings, I can make him mad, you know what I mean? Something I said could tick him off, or they could just not care. But I can't make him mad, but that was because I had never seen my father really emote. He was always really even keel for the most part, unless he was mad, in terms of showing other emotions. And so I told him this too, not too long ago, like, Dad, he was like, really? I was like, yeah, it's not your fault from wherever your upbringing and how you dealt, but it was what I saw. And so it was something that I internalized. So I do think there's kind of that extreme sometimes that we have to check ourselves around, do we feel like it's just this or that? And sometimes for the ladies, I feel like, fellas can think, or we can think it's just either she upset and got an attitude or she cool. Like when there's way more, there's way more to it. And I think that's what makes it challenging to articulate how we feel, because we're in this state of extremes and not able to really say what that means, because anger is secondary.
Yeah,
It's usually because you're hurt, you're disappointed, you're embarrassed, and it just manifests itself that way. But you've got to be able to tap into what it's really about.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, what you just said. I like how you said anger is secondary, right? I
Yeah.
know that is true, but I hadn't heard it in that aspect that way, right? So, uh, wow, that you said something right there. Normally I
You
have
got,
something. That was
I
that one hit
know.
me.
This
That
is
hit
the
me right
first,
here.
y'all.
That hit me right there because I'm now that I'm thinking about it. Even I'll say personally for myself, like dealing with um, trying to be a father. I had two daughters,
Girls.
two
Mhm.
girls, right? And I was always taught to not show any emotions, right?
Mm.
So we don't realize how much that breaks a person that you tell them you can't show emotions. Not only just little boys, but little girls as well too. Was raised to be hard as well.
Yeah.
So then you get to an age of you want to be shown love, and it's
Mm.
like, well, what about them 25 years that I was told not to show this? Now you want me to show it after
Like
25
the
years?
woman's like, please give it to me.
We've been together for a year, and you
Yeah.
want me to show you this after 25? No, baby girl, I'm still trying to figure out how to show myself, right?
Hmm.
So that's one of the most broken areas
Mm.
in our community is
Yeah.
that we held on to don't show no emotions, don't show no feelings. You can't cry.
Yeah.
You got to be tough because how we are, and if you don't be that way, people will walk over you.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be tough and to stop people from walking over you. You can still be a loving person, but
Mhm.
loving with some sternness. Like, hey, I love you,
Firm love.
but let me tell you
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
and you have to be at that place. But so many of us don't even understand that that is one of the causes or the main cause most of the time of why we don't even know how to love or why we
Yeah.
don't know how to show emotions
Yeah.
because for our entire life we was told not to.
Yeah.
So now I don't know how to articulate myself to you of
Mhm.
how I feel because I've never talked about it. No one has ever shown me how to talk about it. And now you're asking me to give you something that I don't know how to. And
Yeah.
now you're mad at me because I'm oblivious to even understanding your needs
Yeah.
in that aspect because I never thought that was even important.
Mm. And then you give it how you can give it, and it doesn't feel like it's enough. And now you're
Yeah,
frustrated because what you're doing is not enough, right?
yeah,
And I feel like when that happens too, your spouse starts to break down. Even if they were more vulnerable, they start to hold more things back. And there's more not said in your relationship than said, because even though you may be home working from home now, people don't necessarily have, at first maybe you had more time to reflect as everyone was adjusting, but as they realized that we're going to have virtual school and we're going to do this and we're going to have this and we're going to have these meetings, some people are like, I'm working more now, like why we have to have all these meetings.
yeah. Yeah, man. Listen, but I'm kind of glad though. I'm gonna be honest. I ain't got to drive to work. I ain't got to be in traffic for an hour and a half. Oh
I get
Lord
that.
Jesus,
I
thank
do.
you.
I've always
Oh
been
Lord.
that. I've been that way for 6 years. So I get it though. People are discovering it and discovering the joy, but I think it's so important that you hit on that as a piece of what breaks us and what makes it so challenging in the relationship, and then there's an aspect that's missing, and it's I don't know the how. Because I remember, just we have to start to unlearn the things that we're taught, because I've heard the whole, I'm emotional, right? We get that because I'm a woman, oh, you're being emotional. And I'm like, and it was maybe 4 years ago that I sat with this, and I was like, emotion is a human experience. Human experience. And yet when you look at me, because I'm doing the ebb and flow of what I do as a human being and as a person, I'm being emotional. And oh, that, and I'm like, You are emotional as well, as a man, as another human being, and we assign these things. And so what I feel like you're hitting the nail on the head is that we have to break through to the how are we able to then move through that and get to the core of what it is that we're feeling. How do we start to kind of cross these things off the list that we've heard our entire life
Yeah.
and replace
You
it
be
with
like,
something
man,
else?
wow, this is a long list.
Long list. Huh, because it's rough, in navigating, relationships, male and female, navigating what you've been taught, or even if you're a female that's more vocal. I know very vocal females who get the whole where you act like a man thing just because of how they express themselves naturally. Or if there's a quieter man, somehow, he's a punk. And it's like,
But you know what's crazy? Let me show you how that contradicts itself. A man doesn't talk, but then when a woman talks, it says you're like a man.
mm,
But then when the man is quiet, when the woman has said that she's talking all the time, you are like a woman. That doesn't make sense, you know. But we're not gonna dig deep into that. But I just want to throw that little tidbit out there.
it rarely does, Willie. It rarely
Yeah, you know.
does.
But I
That's
will
why
say
we
this.
gotta
Oh, go
cross.
ahead. Yeah.
No, yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to say, in just listening to you, it's funny. You know me, I like to think about things that happen in my life, and I like to tell a story. And it's my youngest daughter, Taylor. I was working, she's here with me, I'm working and I'm busy trying to get these sales closed and all, and I'm not thinking, and she hadn't eaten all day,
Mm,
right? She had ate breakfast and a little snack, but then it was later in the evening, and she was like, Daddy, I'm hungry. And I'm like, no, you're not going to eat anything. It's too late. You're not going to eat that, right? And I got frustrated instead of just thinking, right? And she was like, but I hadn't eaten all day. I hadn't ate since whatever time it was, right? And I was like, no, I know what I'm talking about. I know I fed you such and such and such. But mentally, I was thinking that I'm going to do this. I'm gonna feed her something. But I didn't do it, right?
mm,
So then I was sitting down and she was crying, and I like to correct myself. See, that's the one thing that we have to understand. You have to
absolutely.
correct yourself in order to build,
Yeah.
right? Because you don't know everything and you're not always right. So she was crying, and with little girls, and you can
Hmm.
follow, you know,
Yeah.
you
It's a
can be
wrap.
mad as you want, but when you see them tears coming for some reason, they just grab your heart and be like, "Listen here, you gonna listen to me, Daddy, with these tears coming down my eye."
Yes.
And I sat back and I thought, and I was like, "Oh, she really hasn't eaten." And I had to tell us, Taylor, you know what? I'm sorry, you hadn't eaten, right? And that's the same way in relationships. You could be mad and then you be like, no, 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 I know I'm right. And then you have to go and sit with it and realize that you're wrong and correct yourself. And that pride gets in the way. Well, I'm not going to let them know that I was wrong, because then they're going to hold it over my head.
Mm-hmm.
Fool,
Mm-hmm.
calling myself that, not you all. I'm calling myself fool. I just want to let you know it's okay for you to be wrong.
Yeah.
That's one of the best ways for you to learn in life, is
Yeah.
by making mistakes. If you do everything right, you're not going to have a different perspective
Mhm.
on situations.
Yeah.
So that's why I do my best. Like when I feel I'm about to argue or something like that, I try to shut down and say, look, either I'll listen to you and I don't have anything to say, I can come back to it, or I just don't want to talk about it right now because we're not going to get anywhere. Because it's either going to have us get into an argument,
Mm-hmm.
and then now we got to find our way back to the place that we could have stayed if we would have just stepped away,
Right.
or you can say things that you can't take back, and it's like that's how you really felt. And
Mhm.
then people be like, no, I didn't feel like that. Yeah, you did. You really did feel that way. You
Mhm.
just didn't want them to know because you didn't want them to feel that pain. But that's how you really felt, right?
Yeah.
So I think we have to realize the importance of correcting ourselves, and then also to listen to understand. That's so important.
Mhm.
Me being a talker, oh, you say something,
Mhm.
you could say 13 things, but if that fifth thing you said, I have a good comeback to, the rest of that stuff after the fifth, I'm not listening to. And most people are not.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
waiting till you finish. You finish with the 13. Okay. Well, number five, you had said this. But let me tell you why that's wrong. Right? And you think you don't did something good, and it's like, no. Well, if you listen to number 12, I really did just say what you said, but you didn't listen because you was ready to say something instead of listen to what I was saying.
Mhm.
I think that's
Yes.
important as well.
Oh, it's absolutely important. You just, we just gonna be digging deeper into this in the communication segment, but but it's real. It's absolutely true. And I love how you put that because it's real. I literally had a couple, he was talking, I saw the light bulb go off, and she was like, I was like, wait, she's like, I got something for that one. I was like, no, wait, time out, rewind the tape, breathe, and let's just hear it out because I'm gonna call you on it if you're not listening to what the
Yeah,
other's saying, and vice versa, because it's real. We're just waiting our turn. We're like, okay, so when it's my
yeah,
turn, I'm about to let you know what's up.
yeah,
And it's frustrating.
yeah,
It leads to such frustration, and you're all about how do we build the bridge from these things that we've been taught, these ways that we interact with ourselves and with each other,
mhm,
and move it to a place of okay, we're in a state of connectivity. We talked about doing things together and mixing it up, making that intentional time a priority, and about how we need to be able to listen to each other, and it's
mhm,
okay if we make mistakes. And I'm like, and that's the reality, period. We have a parenting segment too, but you're not the end all be all. You're not superwoman, superman, even if you want your children to see you that way. The reality is it's more detrimental to paint that picture than to say, hey, I'm a human being, I'm on this earth with you, I'm learning as well.
yeah,
That's important, and it's important for your spouse to know that too, that they're seen, that you're seen, and that you're going to make mistakes and you're going to acknowledge them, and that's okay. Because then yeah, you are able to kind of start to build build that bridge, through the brokenness, because you be hitting with
yes.
the alliteration, to
Mhm.
to the love and the connection that you want to really have with them. And so back into ways that as we're healing as individuals, that we can really connect together in and out of the home. What does that look like?
Well, you have to start first. Well, first you have to realize what it is that each other like, right? And in one week or however you set it up in your own life. One time you go out, you do what the man wants. And then the next time you go out, you do what the woman wants, right? So now you're meeting each other in the middle in the aspect of we're not just doing what one person wants all the time,
Hmm.
right? And then you never know, it may be something that you may start enjoying yourself, right?
Hmm.
Uh,
Like the gun range.
the gun range. So let me tell you, it was crazy. I was the man. I'm not going to get my feet done. I'm not. That's not manly to get your feet done, right? That was me, right? And I think, oh, it was my daughters. I went with my daughters. Once again, there they go trying to, think they control me and everything. I'm the daddy, but I still sat right there and got my feet done, right?
Yeah, you did.
And I sat down, and before that, I would never experience anything like that. And I'm saying that to say something. I did it, and I actually was having back problems, right?
Mhm.
So when I got my feet scrubbed and all, I didn't know that when your foot is hard on a certain area, your posture, you lean, right? I
Mhm.
didn't know this. So
Mhm.
literally, just my daughter's telling me to try something, it literally took away a lot of pain, right?
Yeah.
So then when I started doing research to see that, I'm like, listen, you can't be saying I don't want to do something just because women do it.
Mhm.
It might be something that can help you. Now, some things, now look at my eyes, some things you should just let it be for women. But we're gonna leave that alone. I love all of y'all. We
Good.
love you to death.
No, we get it.
Hugs and kisses, mooches. But it's certain things you have to be willing to be open to in order to see if it's something that you may like,
Right.
because you can't stay in your bubble. So that's another thing. Just be willing to try different things.
Right.
I will say, and I would say the thing that would be for me that I learned is to ask more questions, right?
Mhm.
Ask more questions in your relationship, and not to, how can I say this? It's not for you to be uh, digging deep and trying to bring up old wounds, right? But any old wound is still a wound, no matter if it's old or new, it's still a wound, right?
Yeah.
So you need to find ways to heal from things that was caused from the past,
Yeah.
especially in this time. So when you communicate with each other more, it's allowing you to bring things together and bring things up to fix that you may have put away because you didn't have the time to deal with whatever that was at that time. Now you have all the time.
Mhm.
I'm sitting here at my desk, you right there. You're not on the phone. I'm not texting you. We can talk, right?
Mhm.
How are we going to get past the anger issues that maybe have been boiling up?
Mhm.
Safe havens. I promise you, I've seen how this works so good. Is
Yeah.
have a safe word, or and that can be a safe haven as well too. You feel like it's getting to a certain place.
Yeah.
Have a safe haven. I
Yeah.
had this one old couple that told me when they about to get in a argument, they'll sit there and look at each other in their eyes and don't move or kiss, right? And until it breaks. And I'm like, I don't want to kiss nobody when I'm mad at them. And he was like, but that's the thing is, and I'm listening to him because I'm seeing him. He older. They probably like 60 years old. He's still grabbing his
They're
wife
still
booties.
popping.
I'm sorry, but I'm just saying this. You married, you can do those things. You can grab your wife's booty. That's not wrong, right?
It's
But he was
not.
like, you have to be with the arguments that you don't fix are the arguments that break your relationship.
Yeah.
And I was like, listen, well, I think I done broke some relationships because look here, they didn't even know I was mad, right?
Yeah.
Because I didn't
Oh,
say anything.
that's a trigger
So
for
you didn't
me.
know I was mad. I'm mad that you don't know that I'm mad. So
Yeah.
now I'm angry that the whole thing I'm mad and you don't want to fix what I'm mad about, but you don't know that I'm mad about it.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was me. Pray,
Mm-mm.
forgive me
Mm-mm.
if I ever did anything to hurt you. Please forgive me
Oh,
if you're watching this
if
video.
you're watching this and you see Willie
If you're
Johnson,
watching this,
this
dude,
man.
this man right here. But that right there is
Yeah.
something that is causing a lot of problems. Is because we're mad. They don't know that we're mad because we didn't tell them that we're mad about something they did wrong that they didn't think was wrong. So it's all boils back to what you always say, communication. And you have to be willing to get outside of your comfort zone. And some things you can't get away from. Some things is going to be heated. And not saying it has to be an argument, but some things is going to hit places that you don't want to hit. But you have to in order to heal them. Take that band-aid off, let that air hit that fresh wound so that you can go ahead and start the healing process.
Yeah, absolutely. Truth be told, you were talking about the past real quick, and I was like, I feel like I can't end this segment about healing and about the past and about brokenness and building the bridge without talking about the moments where even in established relationships and marriages, you start to reminisce or compare to other relationships that you've had in the past, right? So you notice something you didn't like, maybe you noticing it more because things have been revealed during this time that you're spending more time together in the house, and you start thinking about Bobby or Jessica or Michelle, Tip, whomever, and that relationship, and things start to get muddy. And so how do you draw that line, that boundary line for yourself, so that you don't fall down that pit? That's
That's
it.
that's a that's a pit. I think that's a gutter. That's a you
That's
know,
the
a
Grand
sinkhole.
Canyon.
That's one of those.
It's the
um,
eighth wonder of the
that's the eighth wonder of the world. That's how deep that is.
world.
But the first thing I would say is that I don't think it's a bad thing that we learn what we don't like and do like from other people,
Yeah.
right? Because it allows us to get to a place where whoever we're dating at the time or in a relationship, if we didn't experience that with them, we might have not known that and then grown into the person that we are for them to fall for, right?
Mhm.
But it's a difference of learning from something and comparing and saying you don't. The
Mhm.
learning part is okay. I don't like this. I'm gonna express what I don't like and what I do like, and then we meet in the middle. Comparing is not giving me the opportunity to make a change or telling me what you don't like so I can change and get mad at me because I'm not doing what you experienced before,
Right.
right? And most of the time, it's the two main things is going to be sex.
Mhm.
Comparing to what just if you had sexual partners before, if one person, we gonna just we grown, but ain't gonna be too grown. Did some things strange for no change, and you liked it. You trying to figure out how to
Yeah.
get that right now.
Yeah.
It's okay to find that right now, but you have to talk about it, right?
Yeah.
But that's something that before you even talk about getting into something serious, you have to express that at the beginning
Yeah.
because I don't think people realize the expressing things at the beginning of something that you're trying to build long term allows you to be able to keep things together on the back end. And
Yeah.
that's like if you're building a house. You're never going to build a house on an unsturdy ground. You're in this bricks and you're not going to build your foundation on that because if you do, it's going to disturb your foundation. It can break it. It can stop you from having a well put together home, right? So your
Absolutely.
relationship is your home. So what are you going to do to continue to build that foundation correctly? You
Yeah.
have to clear the lot, which is when you're building a house. You have to tell what's the skeleton. Hey, I like this. I like my feet rubbed and my pinky toe sucked. If that's what you like, you gotta say it, right?
Mhm.
You have to be real. We grown, and you behind closed doors. If you don't want someone to be real with you and tell you what you need to do,
Right.
stop asking for help because you're really not going to use it. You're wasting your time and the person's time and the information, right? So you have to understand the difference of the two. Comparing can hurt, but allowing to change can heal.
Yeah.
So if you tell me you don't like it or you do like it, I'm gonna say, hey, this is what I like, what I don't like, and this should be for everyone.
Right.
And now, okay, how can we meet in the middle?
Yeah.
I may do this more this time. I want you to do more of this the next time.
Yeah.
And you have to be give and take because if you're taking and taking and taking, the person that you're taking from is going to eventually feel like they're being used. And when
Mhm.
that happens, that's where the problems come in. And when you feel like you're being used, it's really hard to come back from feeling like you're being used. It's hard, like somebody cheating on you,
Mhm.
because you can't trust them that they're not going to take you for granted anymore.
Mhm.
So don't compare, just allow them to change
Right. And
by
and
communicating.
yeah, and given that opportunity, my thing, I always say marriage is an opportunity to be at a heightened state of awareness of self, your spouse, and thus your marriage. It is first and foremost that opportunity, whether we take it
Yeah.
is up to us. But that's the mantra I personally live by, even when things feel crappy, even when things are hard. I'm like, well, this is yet another opportunity. Like, how am I going to show up? I can't control him. How am I going to choose to show up? And then I have to take responsibility for how I do or do not show up in that situation. And one thing that I want to challenge folks to think about around what you just said, around talking about things in the beginning and getting out in the beginning and laying a strong foundation, is that your marriage is going to have several beginnings because there are certain things that you're not going to know. So you're not going to
Mhm.
have that conversation like you were saying early in your 20s when you just met. You're not going to talk about it. But when you realize certain things about yourself, now you have another opportunity, another beginning to have that conversation and to move forward and to grow. I can literally tell you, over we've been together for over a decade, just where we have grown in specific areas. We have grown in understanding what we need in terms of communication. We have grown in terms of understanding what each other's triggers are. We have grown in how we're able to be vulnerable with each other. We have grown in giving each other space and knowing that's not a bad word. We have grown in how we're able to talk about money, in particular, in the different ways that we had relationship with money and how we want to deal with that together. And we're still growing in that space. We have grown in very specific ways. And if you can't pinpoint the growth and be able to articulate it, then you may not be growing. You may be in a stagnant space or stagnant in certain areas. And so encouraging you to think about the breadth of your and the bandwidth of your relationship as having several beginnings with new opportunities to grow and to shift, like you're saying, because I don't want folks to be like, damn, we really didn't do that in the beginning. We done jacked it up for our life.
Check it all up.
We jacked it all up. You always have, that opportunity, to do that and to grow. And that's what's beautiful. I know some people that have been in that pit deep, and they had to, this is a word we don't like to do, but they had to divorce that relationship in order to kind of move forward, because they kept on pulling, well, you always do this, and this is what you do, and this is who you are. And I'm like, if you put somebody in that box, they don't get the opportunity to grow and to change, like you're saying. So absolutely, I'm loving all of it.
I like what you just said. I'm glad that you said it. A relationship have several beginnings, right? And I never looked at it like that. See, that's why you be teaching me, girl. Keep doing what you. That's why I'm proud of you, sis. Teach me. I needed
Man.
that. A relationship have several beginnings, and now I'm looking at it. I'm like, you're right. Because as you grow, and we talk about it, as you grow, it's like, what do you go through? What do you deal with? Okay, I dealt with this before. I never dealt with this. So now I have to learn this, right?
Yeah.
So now that you have to learn it, it's a whole different process.
Yeah.
So be willing to compromise and change, because
Yeah.
it's several. I like that. I'm gonna use it.
No,
Is it okay?
it's okay. You know what I'm saying? Tell them I told you. No, just kidding.
I'm gonna give you your. I'm gonna give it all the credit, all to you. I promise.
Not messing with you, but it's real. You made me think of that because we when we do that, we have several opportunities to move through and to shift, and giving those opportunities is really really important to the breadth of our relationship. You know what I love about this segment is that you have really encompassed everything that we're really talking about in this whole weekend. We talked about money a little bit. We've touched on, sex a little bit. We've touched on the parenting aspect a little bit, and of course the communication. And so this is kind of bringing it, bringing things all full circle. And even if you haven't watched every segment yet, those of you who are listening, it all comes together in this beautiful way, because these are the areas that we don't talk about a lot. We don't talk about how to better our communication. We don't talk about sex, as you were talking about. We need to talk about, people ain't talking about it, but
Yeah.
Jolly and I talked about it. We don't talk about, money and how we're building together, especially if we deal with money differently, and we don't talk about our healing and building those bridges. And so it just, in the parenting aspect as well, we just talked about all of it, and I just think that's so dope. I love that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm glad that we were able to bring it all together, and it's simply because we're so passionate about people and their happiness.
Yeah.
It's important, but you have full control over it.
Yeah.
We can give you the guidelines, we can give you ideas, but it's up to you to put those into action
Yeah.
in order for you to change your life.
Yeah.
Your relationship, your life, an aspect individually, your children's lives. You have to understand that that is important for you. Is that you're taking time for you and us when it comes to the relationship, so that we can continue to bring happiness in each other's lives.
Mm, yes.
Yeah.
And we had to get serious and passionate about our own happiness first. So I love it.
Yes. Yeah.
Man, I know you used to dropping all the nuggets, but you gotta save some of them. So you gotta tell the people, how they stay connected with you.
So you can stay connected with me on all social media platforms. It's I am the Willie J. I am the Willie J. My website is iamwilliejohnson.com. Yes, that's a country southern name. I'm from Alabama. I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure you heard it throughout the video. The country has come out. But yes, follow me everywhere. I'm always dropping gems for you, giving you little tidbits, and just always being open and honest as a man about life, my mistakes, learning from my mistakes, and what I need to do in order to grow. And it may be something that I say that can hit home with you to help you learn and grow as well too in your life, because we all need help. We're all students of life. No matter what you think, no matter how far you have went in life, we're always going to be students if you're willing and wanting to grow. So if that's what you want, follow me, follow my lead, and I promise you that I'm not going to do anything to try to purposely hurt you or give you the wrong information. And if I'm ever wrong, tell me. I love you enough for you to tell me, and I'll go back and correct myself. All right?
Yes, this man right here he done said it. I know y'all done heard the word, you done been convicted. Definitely, this is a space where we get to engage. This is not a one-off, alone space. You can actually comment because it's a social space below. What hit you? What are your takeaways? What are you thinking? Make sure you hit up Willie's segment of the Saucy Marriage Weekend Playbook because there's going to be some good stuff in there for you to bring all of these nuggets into your home and your relationship and your marriage. Okay. And yes, we're going to keep seeing you on the flip side. Bye for now. And I'm going to see y'all later.
Peace.